I called it. I had a feeling we would be in this position again, but at least the IRS only waited until late November instead of late December like they did last year to drop the bomb on us that all that stress and anxiety we suffered throughout this entire past year was for nothing. Because surprise, they're kicking the 1099K can down the road one more year and are likely increasing the threshold, which is what I thought they would do. I'm going to tell you what all that means and the details of how it affects you. Hey, my name is Mark too, and I'm a CPA and former reseller who specializes in helping online resellers and businesses with taxes and growing their businesses profitably. Some of you have been selling for years and others are just starting out. So here's the background. If you've ever had sales during the year of at least $20,000 on any given platform and at least 200 transactions, then you've likely received a Form 1099-K. These are forms that the IRS requires your payment processors to send you if you surpass certain thresholds. Historically, the threshold has been $20,000 and 200 transactions. So if you've had at least that level of sales activity that went through PayPal, let's say, then PayPal was required to send you a 1099-K showing the total dollar amount processed during the year. But they don't just send that information to you, they're also sending it to the IRS. Millions of people sell online, but not all of them know that they're required to report those sales on their taxes. Others might know, but just aren't sure how to go about it. But when the IRS receives the record of your online selling income, but then doesn't see that income reported on your tax return, they'll send you a letter with an updated tax bill. So if you had $40,000 of sales on eBay this year, but didn't include that on your tax return, the IRS will see that you didn't report the $40,000 and they'll send you a tax bill for about an additional $6,000 to $12,000 depending on your income tax rate. And that's usually when somebody calls me in a panic. The problem with that is that the IRS isn't factoring in any of the deductions that you're entitled to. So typically what I'll do is help the person amend their tax return to not only include the $40,000 in sales that the IRS expected to see, but also all of the business deductions that they were entitled to. So after deducting expenses such as cost of goods sold, supplies, subscriptions, travel, mileage, and so on, it could be that the taxable profit ends up being much less, leaving them owing much less and maybe having no tax at all. So that's what happens when you don't report your income when the IRS has a record of it. But what if you're below that $20,000 threshold and you don't get a 1099? You don't have to report that income, right? Wrong. This is an all too common misconception. The IRS might not have a record of it, but that doesn't mean you don't have to report it. You do typically still need to include your business activity on your tax return, even if your income is below that 1099 threshold. But millions of people fall below that threshold, and many of them are not reporting their business income. And since the little guy is much easier for the government to shake down than sophisticated multi-billion-dollar corporations, a few years ago, someone had the bright idea to reduce the threshold down to just $600. As part of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, the 1099-K threshold was supposed to be reduced from $20,000 and 200 transactions to just $600, regardless of the number of transactions. If you've always reported your online sales activity, whether or not you received a 1099-K, this won't change anything for you. But if you haven't reported your sales activity in the past because you haven't received a 1099-K, you likely will no longer be able to continue to hide or at least go unnoticed by the IRS. The $600 threshold was supposed to take effect for the 2022 tax year. That means if you had $601 of sales on eBay, let's say, for the year, eBay would be required to send you a 1099-K and to report it to the IRS. So then if the IRS doesn't see an amount equal to at least $601 reported on your tax return, they'll be following up with you. This was going to cause a huge burden on payment processors to implement, not to mention the massive confusion it was going to cause for regular taxpayers. One of the biggest problems is that sometimes personal transactions that shouldn't be there get reported on the 1099-K, which really muddies the waters. And dropping the threshold down to just $600 would include a ton of people who don't have reselling businesses. They might have just sold a couch on eBay for a loss and they have no idea that the IRS now thinks that they owe tax on that sale, even though they don't. Long story short, 2 days before Christmas in 2022, the IRS came out and said, "Just kidding, we didn't really realize this would be a huge mess and we're going to delay the implementation of the $600 threshold until 2023, so that's what we've all been planning on." I thought there was a good chance the IRS would either delay the implementation again and or raise the threshold. And guess what? It looks like they're doing both. Just 3 days before Thanksgiving in 2023, the IRS announced that they're delaying the implementation of the $600 1099K threshold again, and that they're instead planning for a threshold of $5,000 for 2024 as part of an eventual phase-in to implement the $600 threshold. So again, for those of you who are running a reselling business and already reporting that income on your taxes, this doesn't really change anything for you. But for those of you business owners who aren't filing your taxes because you're under the old $20,000 threshold and are able to fly under the radar, I guess no one's going to stop you from flying under there for at least another year. But then again, maybe not. Some companies have already implemented system changes and it may be too late in the year for them to change back. So there will likely be many 1099K forms that go out this year, even to those below the old thresholds. I saw this happen for 2022, so my guess is that it'll happen for 2023 as well. The bottom line is that you should be keeping your own records anyway and reporting them on your taxes. I always trust my numbers more than what's shown on 1099s anyway. If you really want to get a hold of your tax situation, come join Reseller Tax Academy. The biggest sale will be in January, and for the first time ever, I'll be closing the doors for the entire year. Use the link below to join the waitlist and be notified of the sale details. If you have any questions, post them below or come post them in the Accounting for Online Sellers Facebook group. It's free and will help you out. Subscribe and check out the links below for more resources to help you optimize your tax situation and overcome the anxiety so you can focus on building your business profitably.